Tennis is a sport that obviously incorporates an overhead swing, so it's important to warm up the upper body as well as what needs to happen to cover the court, running, changing direction, cutting, accelerating and decelerating, so it's important to also warm up the lower body. Because of the shape and the design of the hypersphere, you can utilize it in multiple directions. You can go up and down, you can go side to side, you can use it with rotation, you can run a joint across that or tissue across that back and forth in a series of patterns. So it really becomes a more functional way to do myofascial release. A great place to start to increase mobility at the hips is by utilizing a myofascial release technique, utilizing the hypersphere. You want to be able to turn and rotate, allowing the hip to open up. Start to inhibit those muscles, they're going to allow them to stretch out and become more extensible throughout the entire swing. The lats can cause low back pain when they get short and tight. The lat, because of its attachment on the pelvis, can also rotate the pelvis forward in addition to a tight hip flexor, putting the ball up underneath your lat. You can move through multiple ranges of motion, up, down, side to side, rotation. You can even move your arm in different ways as well by internally and externally rotating the shoulder. The psoas is also known as the hip flexor. It attaches your lower extremity up deep into your spine. When that becomes tight and overactive, it affects the position of your hips. So to stretch it out, you can stand with your feet stagger stance apart, hands extended overhead, and you can stretch it in 3 planes of motion. The psoas is a unique muscle that works in a front to back, side to side, and rotational type movement, so we want to stretch it in all 3 of those positions. The best way to cause an increase in flexibility and range of motion of the hip joint is by stretching it. So the individual will lay on their back, cross one leg over the other, and then pull their knee up towards their opposite shoulder to increase the extensibility of that tissue. After performing myofascial release on the lat with either the Viper or the hypersphere, the next sequence of events is to stretch that out to increase the flexibility of the tissue. To stretch the lat, the individual can go into an all-fours position and utilize a stability ball, or they can reach overhead, grabbing onto an object. One of the key things to do is make sure that the trunk is falling forward, the lat is as stretched out as possible, and in order to do that, you can rotate your low back by tucking your pelvis underneath you. You're going to get an extra stretch within the lat itself. One of the exercises to help strengthen the glute medius and the glute maximus is an exercise called backward tube walking. Take exercise tubing or bands, place them around your ankles, keep your belly button drawn in to keep your core and your pelvis stable, and you're simply going to walk backwards, taking a step at a 45-degree angle each time. Bring your feet back to shoulder width apart, and then repeating in the opposite direction. As you extend, make sure you're not arching your back, and make sure that you're extending your hip, your glute, and your quad as much as you can. We use the hypersphere to help stabilize the shoulder muscles and activate the small intrinsic muscles that do stabilize the shoulder prior to activities such as throwing. Hold the hypersphere straight out to the side. Hold it there for about 30 seconds in a horizontal abducted position. Hold it at shoulder height. Be sure to keep the shoulder blades back and down as you're performing this exercise. The side lunge to balance exercise trains the body in the frontal plane, which translates into better side-to-side movement. Start on one leg and transition and hop forward onto their opposite leg, stabilizing and balancing so they're in complete control during the movement pattern. Once they've stabilized and balanced, they're going to hop backwards onto the leg from which they started. They can perform this action in a front to back motion, they can do it side to side, and they can do it with a turn or a rotation so that you're utilizing and engaging in all 3 planes of motion, which are a part of functional activity. Single leg side to side hops help to increase intensity and speed of training in different planes of motion. To increase intensity and speed of training in a different plane of motion, the athlete should place their hands on their hips and perform the hops as quickly as can be controlled.